Hi, I'm your host, Larissa Worstiak. Through this podcast, I aim to empower and inspire jewelry entrepreneurs and innovators so they can thrive by doing what they love. I'm passionate about digital marketing for jewelry brands, and I'm excited to share that passion with you. This is episode 112, and today I'm going to be sharing part 2 of a 2-part interview with Jen Cullen Williams, an award-winning public relations and brand communications strategist for the jewelry industry and luxury brands. Before you listen to this episode, if you haven't already, I highly recommend you go back and listen to episode 111 to hear the first part of this 2-part conversation. But let me give you some background info about Jen anyway, because she's super impressive. So prior to launching her consulting business in 2019, Jen was the managing director for Luxury Brand Group from 2007 to 2019, where she continues to consult on projects for the agency's jewelry and luxury clients. Her experience in the jewelry industry is multifaceted, and she's had the opportunity to support a wide variety of brands, including both direct-to-consumer and B2B. When it comes to her PR expertise, Jen's secured press placements for her clients in leading consumer media outlets such as Vogue, Harper's Bazaar, Elle, Forbes, and others. In this second part of the 2-part episode, we cover topics like e-commerce trends for 2021, the potential of Pinterest in jewelry marketing, setting realistic expectations for public relations, and how to go about optimizing your jewelry e-commerce site. I really hope you enjoy listening to this episode as much as I had fun chatting with Jen. But before we get to the focus of the episode, I, as always, would like to share some marketing-related news and insights from the past week that caught my attention. So as I just mentioned in this episode, Jen and I will be spending some time discussing Pinterest. I currently don't really work with Pinterest very often because my clients, it's just not our focus in social media marketing. Their particular customers aren't spending time there. So it was great to talk to Jen because she has a lot more hands-on experience with Pinterest than I do. She even recently wrote an article in conjunction with Duval Osteen for National Jeweler all about Pinterest and how to use it properly. The thing that interests me most about Pinterest is that it's basically a search engine like Google, but for images. So in this article that she co-wrote, they note that Pinterest is especially useful for bridal jewelry brands, but could really be useful for any type of jewelry brand. Journalist Emily Vesseland recently wrote in an article for JCK about why jewelry product descriptions are so important, just as important as product photos. You may think that people don't really read anymore, but you'd be surprised. Especially with jewelry, many people want that extra layer of story and nuance that goes with a piece. They want to know about the inspiration, the materials, the process of crafting it, etc. If you don't have any product descriptions at all, or maybe there's a line, or maybe it was just originally created for your wholesalers, then your jewelry is kind of just floating in a vacuum. So go read this article from JCK and then actually go listen to episode 94 of this podcast for tips about how you can start improving your descriptions. And lastly, just before I even started recording this, I saw an article from the Glossy about the jewelry brand Mejuri, which caters to self-purchasing female millennials, and a really cool new marketing campaign that they're doing leading up to International Women's Day in March. So Mejuri actually has this Women's Empowerment Fund, and they're doing this special campaign for International Women's Day where they're actually selling a special limited edition sweatshirt that has the word golden embroidered on it. And this is going in conjunction with this larger campaign that's going to promote their efforts to raise funds. I think it's really cool. I think it's a great example of a brand that listens to their customers. So in the article, they talk about how Mejuri's customers have been asking them to offer merch or apparel. So Mejuri is really using this sweatshirt as a way to test that out. And second, I think it's a really good example of a brand using a multi-pronged approach to marketing. So they are bringing their blog into this, On their Style Edit blog, they're going to be profiling women, high profile women who have agreed to be part of this campaign. They're going to be sharing it on email, on their social media, and they're also going to be selling the sweatshirt on their website, obviously, to raise awareness to this empowerment fund that they've created. I think it's really cool. So no matter what you think about Midjourney, I definitely believe this is a really great example of marketing and that people can definitely learn something from it. If you want to get the links to the articles I share in this segment of the podcast, you can sign up for my email newsletter by visiting joyjoya.com/sign up, and you'll get a digest with the links every time a new episode drops. Okay, let's get to the second part of my 2-part interview with Jen Cullen Williams. So let's talk a little bit. I feel like we've touched upon some of these things in our conversation indirectly, but I really want to talk about the e-commerce trends, especially in the jewelry industry, that you are expecting to see this year and even beyond. What are some of those?
So jewelry trends in e-commerce, I think one is the increased visual assets on the sites. I think increased searchability within the site so that you can search by not just collection or style or prices under 200 or whatever, but also by ethically sourced, made to order, any other subcategories that you may have that you incorporate that into your experience. I think the virtual appointments will increase, and figuring out the best ways to manage and operate those for businesses is going to be important. I think events are going to still take a little bit of a backseat, at least through the summer, both trade events and customer facing events. So if you do want to do an event, you're going to have to do it digitally. Digitally events are they're not the same. So if you're going to do a digital event, you really need to think about the experience. And I think collaboration, if you're a jewelry brand, then maybe partnering with a local, florist, where you can talk about, how to make a homescape bouquet, or how to optimize your workspace and jewelry that looks great on Zoom. Like, there's just things that you're going to have to get creative in this new marketing or this new world that we live in. And I think you're going to have to figure out efficiency in your sales online. So making sure that you can package and get things out. I also think that brands should be really thinking about their packaging strategy. Like, some brands, it was like slap together, boop. And then other ones were like these elaborate like presentations, but like so many like products. And I felt really guilty. I just don't have space to keep all the marketing assets. So I really like when a brand makes their packaging, even when it's online, very, close to their core. So those are things to be thinking about. And, I think the big question is kind of like, when travel reopens and experiences and dining and the world sort of reopens, like, are people going to be buying jewelry at the same rate as they are right now, when people have a little bit, the people that have income are spending on jewelry? And I don't know. I don't have the answer for that. I wish I did. I wish I had a crystal ball, but I think companies should be thinking about what in this quarter 1 and 2 is what is buying. And I think they should use, certain holidays, Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, as test runs of what might do well for the holidays. And then in the summer, when they're doing their merchandising or development of product, be really thinking about that and start your marketing early. You need to build out a plan. Know that plan might get burned to the ground because something will change, but start with a plan and then be fluid with it and be able to move and adapt. But I think a lot of brands kind of had their like, oh, this is how we do everything. And now it's changed, and you have to be able to incorporate things. I don't even know. I forgot what the question was, but
okay.
I would say, invest in social, like social commerce. Pinterest just about a month ago released as like trends prediction. I don't know if you've seen it. It's Pinterest Business, and they outlined different trends that they foresee. So what they did, so if you click on those trends, then it would tell you from like a business standpoint. So if you're a fashion or retail business, this is how you can infuse the trend on Pinterest into your marketing. Or if you're a finance company, this is how you infuse the trend. So like an example is minimalist weddings. So it was saying, designers should be thinking about having off the rack dresses, quick, shorter order times than typically the longer 6-month plus times. Like you should have dresses ready to go weeks, because people may cancel or push or whatever their weddings. And then they said for, finance, you should be thinking about how do people budget for these weddings. If they want to do a small one now and do a bigger one later, you could be educating them on this new market of weddings. So look at Pinterest business. Also incorporate a lot of Pinterest in your strategy, because it's a huge searchable tool and referral. Increase your Facebook and Instagram advertising. Hire you to actually manage and execute that digital strategy. And I think, look into TikTok, because video is where it's at these days. Video with images, or with captions and explaining, educating, find a voice and really hone in on it, and be your real self, and really show who your brand is. And I think those are the key things to be successful, and then keep optimizing your site. And the quickest thing that someone can do is go on their site, pretend they're a customer, both mobile and on desktop, click every single link, make sure they all still work. Because sometimes Instagram changes it so the feed isn't popping through or whatever. Click all of that stuff, make sure it's all working. Go on the back end, make sure all your meta tags are updated and clear. Check your description, your bio, update your photos on some of those pages. Sometimes they're like left in the dust and no one cares. And those are really easy tools that you can do that will make the experience better.
So many great things. Wow.
So long-winded. I told you I could talk to walls. I could just go on for 6 more hours.
I'm like simultaneously trying to listen very carefully while also making mental notes about comments I have. So a few things I wanted to mention. You said about the searchability, 100% agree. To add a layer to that, mobile searchability, like top priority. Because yes, more people are shopping on mobile devices. That's like a proven statistic, and that's only continuing to increase. But let's be honest, like looking at your phone and trying to like see what you're looking for and see products, it's not easy all the time. So making things even easier to find on mobile rather than a desktop could potentially appeal to customers, because nobody wants to be like looking at their little screen and trying to find what they're looking for. So definitely that. And then I see Instagram and Facebook and especially Instagram for jewelry as like the top customer acquisition channel in social media. Pinterest for me is like a nice to have, but if you're like not doing well at Instagram, like we need to get that working first. I'm curious to know your thoughts about that.
If you're going to do a hierarchy of social platforms to be investing time in the jewelry e-commerce space, I would definitely say you're 100% Instagram and Facebook first. But I think Pinterest is where an indie brand will get discovered. I think it's a huge opportunity, and Pinterest does a really great job. Just go to Pinterest Business. Look at, they literally tell you, like they give you the guide by the play-by-play. They have a lot of free resources on how you can strategically use Pinterest as a business. If you have pins that last longer, it's just a different platform. And when I ask clients, I'll say, what's like one of your number one referral? And they're like, always Pinterest. It's always one of their. And retailers will specifically say it's very helpful. When customers come in the store, they'll often the guy will have a snapshot from Pinterest that either was sent or, or he found, by looking at her boards or, whatnot, or she found looking at his, whatever the thing is. But, I think it's a missed opportunity. And for jewelry, which is so visually stunning, you can kill it on Pinterest, and you can really tie to what's trending on Pinterest, and be discovered. And it really is a referral tool. I think if you're also looking for other referral tools, if you're e-commerce, you should really be thinking about affiliate marketing. There's different affiliate platforms that will help get you exposure with the right people. So I think you should be thinking about that too. But if you had to start completely like a main focus, yes, Instagram for sure. And then, but don't neglect Pinterest. And I don't think it's as hard as, it's not,
Yeah.
I mean, there's engagement, but it's like once you've posted your pins, and Instagram, like they kind of explain like what works, like how often you should be pinning and everything. And they have like a lot of webinars for free that you can watch with experts to talk about it.
Yeah, all great points. I'm kind of wondering too if the Pinterest factor varies by like jewelry category, because I have worked with like bridal, specialty bridal, and that works for them really well because a lot of people go on Pinterest to like search and pin their dream engagement ring. So I wonder if like category to category, if it varies. What are your thoughts about that?
I think it would. I mean, definitely bridal is a strong category on Pinterest because wedding planning and the bands and things like that, and like the men's or masculine bands are really popular on Pinterest. But I do think like fashion and styling is still huge on Pinterest, especially because it hits a slightly lower demographic. Um, I I think, I mean, I know, especially when people are thinking maybe they want to redesign their something, like they have a diamond, but they want to get some inspiration of designs. And so they find designers, like especially artisanal designers. So, and I mean, it's a direct link to buy to a website. So there's not that, I mean, there's shopping functions within Pinterest, but I think it's a really great, it's kind of a weird search, to be honest. Like if you're like looking for something, it's not, doesn't always come up. The brand doesn't always come up, but I've found some really cool stuff. I mean, whenever I'm doing any like house projects and kind of trying to get inspiration of what to do, I've bought off of the products I've seen from my house searches. So I think it's something that people should consider. It's not going anywhere in 2021. So I think that's something people should consider in their strategy.
If you could give tips or guidance or best practices about the types of imagery or video that work really well on Pinterest for jewelry brands, do you have suggestions?
Yes, and again, Pinterest also has suggestions on this too. I think it's a combo. You should pin things directly from your site, and there's ways where you can own your Instagram feed and own your website feed, and you can set that up when you set up your business Pinterest. I think so. The product standard, product shots, hero shots, but then lifestyle images are great. So people moving, wearing. I didn't even touch on this, but I think it's so important. User generated content. So your customers send you a photo or they tag you in a photo, getting their permission and being able to repurpose those is huge. I love it when I'm shopping on a site and I see real people wearing it. It's one of the things that makes me love like Rent the Runway, because they were one of the first ones to really capitalize on that. Now Target does it, and Nordstrom and other ones. So I think it's like really important to kind of see how it's worn by the real people. And I think using that content on Pinterest is another great way. Also doing videos like TikTok, but not as like kitschy song oriented, but a little bit more like educational tutorial style is really good. And again, look at those trends that they were suggesting. There was one trend that was called, like, instead of rainbow, it was called rain brow. And it was all about how we're on all these things, and like the brow is really important, the eyes are really important. And so their prediction is that this year we're going to see a lot of like colored eyebrows and glitter in your eyebrows and like really bold eyebrows. So how does that, like, what does that mean to market to that? Well, for a fashion brand, is considering your lifestyle imagery that you use some of that fashion trend, like these beauty trends, you incorporate that into your product lifestyle imagery. So yeah, you can do your standard, lady like this, but you could also do something cool and funky if you're a funky colored gemstone line with some, model that has glitter rainbow eyebrows and this, and that image is going to pop. It's also going to be something that if your younger kid is, if you're a mom and your kid's kind of scrolling on your Instagram, which my daughter does sadly do that, I can see what she is gravitating to, and it's bright images, so I think considering that into the factor. So video tutorials and product images and things where they'll benefit from.
Such good tips. I feel though like there may have been a missed opportunity. We should have coordinated our colored eyebrows though for this call.
I know. What color would you have done?
Purple.
Okay.
How about you?
I think I would do rainbow. I'm like
Nice.
I'm really digging rainbow. My daughter's really into it, and so I'm like really digging rainbows right now. Funny enough, one of my searches recently was rainbowed gowns because I'm thinking about the galas that, the industry events and things. So I'm like, my next one, I want to wear a rainbow dress, like in some capacity. Like I want bright colors, but I'm not finding a lot. Like a lot of them are really cheesy. So like they're meant for little kids. But yeah, so I think rainbow eyebrows next time we'll have to do that.
Definitely rainbow eyebrows. So I'm totally losing my train of thought. Oh yes. The year of 2021, in my opinion, and I think it's kind of an industry across the board in the industry, I think that it's going to be the year of the customer experience. Like 2020 just blew so much out of the water. I don't even have to like explain any of that, but customers' expectations, the way they shop, what they expect from brands, like everything really changed. So how can jewelry brands really optimize that customer experience and meet customers where they are at this point?
I think it's listen is where you start. Ask for feedback, engage with your top customers, even inviting your top customers to an event that's not a selling event, but it's more of a where are you at event, and maybe gifting them product or giving them a special discount or something like that. Hear them out. What are they doing? What are they expecting? What's working? Like, because at the end of the day, a jewelry customer has to buy other products in their life. They're not just buying jewelry. So what else are they buying? Is it wine? Is it, is it beauty products? Is it skincare, hair care? What are they interested in? What are those other companies doing well? And how can you infuse that into your strategy? And I think that's the key, is like not living completely in your bubble, but really looking at the bigger bubble and on a macro level, what's working, what's not working, what do you as a shopper expect from your, like when you make a purchase, that is going to be key. And then also infusing really fast turnaround times and shipping, so maybe it's locally, you can get things turned around really quickly. And nationally, you're just really spending time on finding the right shipping partners to make these things happen for your customers.
Yeah, really great points. I think the first thing you said about looking outside of the jewelry space and seeing what are the other brands your customers are shopping. I am constantly reminding my clients of this, and knowing your customers, again, let's jam that into everyone's head. Knowing your customers and not only what they want out of your jewelry, but what other brands do they like? They don't even have to be fashion brands. It could be like maybe they like to go to Williams Sonoma and buy like fancy kitchen stuff or whatever it is. But like really being familiar with the brands your customer gravitates toward and seeing, like you said, how those brands are handling the customer experience, the e-commerce experience, because those things are what your customer is going to be used to. That's the standard that they're going to be looking for in every brand that they shop. So if you can kind of meet them there, then you'll be doing a great job. So 100% agree there.
And I
And
think,
then, yeah.
yeah. Oh, I was just going to say, I'm just thinking of styling. If you know what brands that they're shopping, because I even was describing to you a client and I said, her customer base is not the people that are wearing Chanel and high couture. Her customer base is wearing higher end products, but more of, what is it, Ulu Johnson I don't know, Free People,
Yeah.
they're a little bit more boho and in their style. And so that's who her customers, so they're still spending $500 or more on a dress, but they're not buying Chanel. They don't need that. That's not their vibe. And then there's customers where Cartier, they're going to for sure have a Cartier love bracelet. It's an iconic bracelet. It's a status symbol. But maybe you have products that would style or stack well with that. So why don't you show them how they can stack and style with what they're already going to be buying?
Absolutely. And then another thing you mentioned was like, think about how you like to shop. Yes. Like a lot of the advice I give my clients about e-commerce is actually based on my own experiences as a customer because I mean, yes, it's my job to be highly in tune with this, but like I kind of notice the things that annoy me or that I like. And then that informs like how I assist my customers to be better in their e-commerce channels. So when you're a jewelry brand, like of course there are best practices, but there's no like magical like formula. It's just like what do you like? Your customers want to be treated probably the same way that you would want to be treated. So like put yourself in their shoes and
Yes.
think about what would satisfy you in an e-commerce experience.
Yes. And I think it's important. It's something I do is carve out like an hour on your schedule to, maybe it's once a week or every other week or once a month, where you actually kind of take a deep dive on retail trends that are happening inside and outside the market. So where you can start is the National Retail Federation. They've got amazing content. You can sign up for their newsletter. I think clearly read the jewelry trades, JCK, National Jeweler in store, and there's other ones. Those are good. Business of Fashion, WWD, and actually JCK is going to have a subscription called JCK Pro coming out soon. And these three subscriptions, if you are a retail and you're in business and you're in the jewelry business, WWD, Business Fashion, and JCK Pro are the three subscriptions you should get. It's a little bit of an investment. It's a write-off, I guess, at the end of the year, but it's going to give you access to studies, data, information, and things that you actually need for your business to drive it forward. And sign up for your newsletter and really just kind of do take time to research and see what else is out there. And I actually sometimes just Google like retail trends 2020, like social media trends 2020 or 2021. And I just see kind of what comes up and I look to make sure it's coming from a credible source. And then I just read it and I just get an idea. Sometimes I just save those articles and then refresh on them. And I think it's really helpful.
Yeah, the information's definitely out there. And I would say also just become like a curious, interested observer also. Like if you aren't already that kind of person, try to really hone in on that skill. So kind of sometimes I notice that especially independent jewelry brands, not everyone, but some of them like turn up their noses a little bit at the more like established like corporate players. And
Mhm.
like I get that. Like you probably approach your business in a much different way than they do. But as like a study, it's great to look at some of those brands. Like Kendra Scott, for example, they're innovating like crazy in their e-commerce channel. And like I know, I have some clients that wouldn't say the greatest things about that brand, but like, get over it, first of all, and look at their e-commerce site because they are obviously doing something that's working. Look at the huge players, Tiffany. If you want to know like what makes an optimized e-commerce site, what makes a great navigation and user experience, go to tiffany.com because they spend hundreds of thousands, like I don't even know how much, but probably a lot of money into making sure their e-commerce channel is optimized. So if they're doing that, probably it's something right, something to pay attention to. Even like Signet Jewelers and all of their brand properties, like they've had to pivot so much. They're one of the biggest like jewelry corporations in the world. COVID was total disruption. They've had to innovate. Again, a lot of people kind of turn their nose up at a brand, at a company like that, but like they have the money to do the research, to try these new things. So if they're implementing stuff, like take note of it, pay attention to it, because it's probably a sign that it's something that their customers are looking for.
Exactly. You have to look, and also the other industries, the parallel industries,
Yep.
like
Oh, yes.
it's you just, and it's not, and the one thing I always just reality check is, if a client comes to me and they say, I want to be in Vogue, or I want to be like Kendra Scott, or I want to be this or that, I want to be on the Today Show. I'm like, okay, first of all, you just started your line, 6 months ago, you just got your website up and going. Like, you got to be a little realistic. Like, Kendra Scott's been at it for 20 plus years. She's like financially backed, very sound company, teams working on all of these things, bigger budgets. But what you can do, like you said, conceptually, is look at certain pieces of the pie of what they're doing and see what you can feasibly implement into your strategy in your own way to optimize that experience. So maybe it's just having an extra category that, to gifting for Mother's Day, or how to stack, or, there's lots of inspiration you can take from other brands, and they're all doing it from each other anyways. And I think it's funny when companies say, when I ask, like, so who's competitive? Like, where are your customers shopping? They're like, no, I'm the only one. I'm like, no. And also be mindful of the word unique in your like usage of it. Cause I see a lot of brands that say like, we're the only and we're unique. And I think that's not always a true value proposition that will engage a customer. When people ask me like what I do and why me, there's other people that do what I do, 100%. But why me? It's my energy, it's my connections, my creativity, and the way I can help make collaborations happen. And it's ultimately that I understand communications, and specifically in the jewelry market. And that's my core. I call them like my 4 C's. I threw an extra one in there, but it's true. Those are my core things. And you can hire someone else and they could probably do a fine job. But if you really are looking for someone who's going to be creative and energetic and passionate about your brand, and also understands the industry and has deep rooted connections, then I might be your person. So you just got to figure out your brand ethos and how you want to explain it to your customer. And
yeah. Oh my goodness. We could have like a whole other conversation about that. Like I could go on like language, like brand DNA, all of that is like a whole thing. The thing that I encounter a lot in consultations that I have with people is they want to be like the next Majori, which is endlessly frustrating to me and so unrealistic, because Majori has money behind it. They've gotten like $3 million in funding, like their marketing doesn't come from nowhere. There's tons of money behind it. They're basically like throwing money at their influencer strategy. So it's like, good luck with that. Like, do you have venture capital funding?
Yep. Yeah. And that's the reality too, or, brand, like a small independent, it's like, I want to be in New York Times. I'm like, it's, the joke for like a lot of publicists is, if they ask you to be involved with Oprah, New York Times, or the Today Show, you may want to like assess their brand, because if they think that's where they should be and they haven't really looked laterally like where their product fits in the mix, it will be hard to please them as a client. Whereas it might make a lot more sense for them to get local news press coverage where it drives traffic into their store or whatever it is. So you just have to be strategic and, again, know your customer and where you fit into the market. And, you can do a great business and you don't have to be the next Tiffany and Company. Like you can be a small business and do really great business as a one run, person or small team, and be, the pressures that the founders of Majori, I've listened to them on podcasts. It's not easier. They're not like rolling in money and like they're working day in and day out to grow and stay relevant to their customer. And, that takes a lot of hard work and grit. And to scale to that level is a whole other beast. They're constantly searching out for finance, and they get away from the actual craft of making the jewelry. So if you're an independent designer that works with your customer and you create beautiful things that are meaningful, that they keep in their life and they pass down to their children and all of those things, and you're literally part of their life in some capacity, like that's really special. And you don't have to be some big tech giant jewelry company to be involved in people's special moments. So, do it at your own level.
I love that. I think that's a great place to kind of start to wrap up our conversation. I just think it's so encouraging. And I agree that I truly believe, like in my heart, that there is space for everyone in this industry, no matter how like crowded it is. But the only way you can carve that space is if you own what makes you different. I'm like trying to avoid the word unique, but like really what is the DNA? What are you offering to your customer who you know very intimately, and like just owning that and not being afraid to like claim that as your own like stake that you're putting in the ground,
Exactly. Like what makes you special. There's a business coach. She's kind of big. She's like a more modern version of like Tony Robbins. Her name's oh gosh, it's escaping me. Marie Forleo.
Yes, I've heard of her. Mm-hmm.
She's great. She has a book called Everything is Figure Outable. It's actually a fantastic book. It's really motivating. But her thing is that there's no other you. There isn't. So own the you and show that you're how special you are. And there's someone else that needs your specialness. So I kind of always keep that in the back of my mind when I'm thinking about that too, because it can be intimidating. I know other companies and you see and you compare, and that can be hard. And it's good to look outside, but also know what you have inside and what you can give from there.
Definitely. So tell us, like, what do you have on the horizon? Where can people find you? Anything else you're excited to share with my audience?
Oh man. So I'm working with a great B2B platform. So if you're a designer or retailer listening and you're looking for sourcing, especially in the antiques and estate, or even just loose gemstones, but kind of at the higher end level, it's called Jeweler Circle. So check that out, jewelercircle.com, helping them with their kind of launch strategy and getting them out on the market. It makes complete sense to have a B2B marketplace where you can find and source products, not to the consumer, but internally. I'm working with JCK, the trade show, and some announcements and everything about the upcoming 2021 events. And I'm doing some other fun things, working with a trade show in the fashion apparel space. And I actually do some like videos for them. This was a pivot for me. And I mean, ultimately, you can check out my Instagram, which is at Jen C. Williams. I know, okay, I'm in business and I don't really have a business. It's very much just my personal Instagram, and it's mostly my daughter. I did start an Instagram for her called at Kira, Kira Dress Up. And really just because my daughter is kind of like really creative, and it actually feels a lot of my creative energy. She wants to dress up all the time and act things out. So I've been capturing it. And so that's kind of like a really side fun thing that I'm doing. And yeah, I think this year is going to be an interesting year. I'm looking forward to seeing and hugging, I guess maybe like social distancing hugging, but I'm just looking forward to spending time and meeting people in person at probably towards the tail end of this year. So, and dressing up and wearing like shoes.
Seriously. Agreed. And I can attest to Jen's daughter's cuteness because I saw her on a WJA holiday party Zoom, and she just like charmed everyone in that Zoom room.
It's kind of interesting because I think this digital world's like they're absorbing it. So, they're kind of this is probably going to be the world that they're working in. So in some capacity, it'd probably be like 3D or something, but for virtual reality, they'll be wearing glasses and like all in the same conference table.
Oh boy.
But yeah, I think that's, the way of the world. So, but I just want to thank you so much for having me on here. I'm glad we could connect, and I look forward to new opportunities to work together.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, Jen. It was so great to have you. It was such a pleasure to be able to speak to Jen again. Well, it was the same conversation, but in a second part, and learn more about her insights into e-commerce in the jewelry industry at large. If you'd like to learn more about Jen and her services, visit jencullenwilliams.com. As always, you can always email me, Larissa, that's LARYSSA @joyjoya.com with your questions, comments, or feedback. And my book, Jewelry Marketing Joy, is for sale. It's ready to ship. If you want to learn more about it and get a copy for yourself, visit joyjoya.com/book.